The heart monitor emitted its rhythmic beeps in the ICU of Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City, while Amanda Anderson, 42 years old, lay unconscious after a severe stroke. The doctors had declared her case extremely critical, with little chance of recovery. Outside the room, her three children, Michael, 17, Sarah, 14, and Luke, 8, waited anxiously for any sign of improvement, their hands intertwined in constant prayer. What no one could imagine was that, while her body remained motionless in that hospital bed, Amanda's spirit was traveling through dimensions that defied human comprehension. In an instant that seemed to freeze time itself, she found herself before a light so intense that no earthly word could adequately describe it. It was as if every atom of her being vibrated at a different, higher, purer frequency. "Amanda, my child," a voice resonated, not through sound waves but directly into her soul. It was Jesus. She knew this with a certainty that transcended any earthly doubt. His presence radiated a love so deep that it made all her memories of earthly love seem mere shadows in comparison. "Lord," she tried to speak, but realized she didn't need words. Her thoughts, emotions, and adoration flowed naturally towards him. "You have been chosen," the voice continued, "to be a messenger in these last days. What you will see now are events that will mark the beginning of the end times. Pay attention, for every detail is important." Before her, a series of visions so vivid that they seemed more real than reality itself began to unfold. Amanda saw 7 distinct events, each preceded by the sound of a trumpet that reverberated through the very fabric of the universe. The first vision showed a charismatic leader emerging amidst global chaos, offering seemingly miraculous solutions to the world's problems. His presence was magnetic, his words seductive, but something in his eyes caused Amanda deep discomfort. "Many will be deceived," Jesus explained, "for they will seek answers outside of me. This is only the beginning of sorrows." As the visions continued, Amanda felt each scene being etched into her soul with supernatural clarity. She saw entire societies being transformed, revolutionary technologies emerging, but also a growing antagonism against those who maintained their faith in Christ. In her former life as a history teacher at Liberty High School, she always had a special passion for helping her students understand the patterns that repeated through time. Now, faced with these revelations, she realized that all her experience had been preparation for this mission. "Why me, Lord?" she asked in her spirit, feeling small before the magnitude of the responsibility. "Because you have a heart that seeks truth above comfort," Jesus replied, "and because your life as a mother and teacher has prepared you to communicate complex truths with love and patience." The images continued to flow. She saw a great climate change that would defy all scientific explanations, an unprecedented spiritual awakening among the young, and a series of events that would shake the foundations of modern society. Meanwhile, at the hospital, doctors noticed unusual brain activity on their monitors. Dr. Richard Mendez, chief neurologist of the ICU, observed the patterns with growing interest. In his 20 years of career, he had never seen anything like it. "It's as if she's in a state of heightened consciousness," he commented to his team, "but different from anything we've ever documented." Sarah, Amanda's middle child, felt something different in her heart. Since she was little, she always had a special spiritual connection with her mother, and at that moment, even without fully understanding, she knew something extraordinary was happening. "Michael," she whispered to her older brother, "do you feel that? It's like Mom is somewhere very special." Michael, always more skeptical and rational, hugged his sister affectionately. "She'll come back to us, Sarah. She has to." In the spiritual dimension, Jesus was showing Amanda the last of the 7 events, the most impactful of all. "This is the moment for which all creation groans," he said. "But before it comes, many will need to choose who they will believe in. Your mission is to prepare hearts for these choices." Amanda felt an immense weight in her spirit. How would she convince people? How would she explain something so beyond human understanding? As a teacher, she knew the challenge of conveying new ideas, especially those that challenged established beliefs. "Do not fear," Jesus' voice calmed her, perceiving her concerns. You will not be alone in this mission. The same spirit that brought you here will give you the necessary words and courage. Suddenly, Amanda felt an irresistible force pulling her back. The visions began to dissipate, but remained etched in her memory with supernatural clarity. The last thing she heard was, "Remember, time is short, but love is eternal." At the hospital, the monitors began to register significant changes. Dr. Mendez was quickly called to the room. Amanda's eyes began to move under her closed eyelids. "Mom!" Luke, the youngest, was the first to notice the movement of her fingers. Slowly, Amanda opened her eyes. The fluorescent hospital light seemed strangely dull compared to the glory she had just contemplated. Her first instinct was to look for her children, and there they were, their faces marked by fatigue and worry, but illuminated by hope. "My loves," she whispered, her voice hoarse from the time of intubation. Dr. Mendez immediately began his evaluation procedures, but something in his eyes revealed his astonishment. All indicators pointed to an impossible, miraculous recovery. What no one knew at that moment was that this was just the beginning. Amanda Anderson had returned with a message that would shake the world, and her life would never be the same again. The clock was ticking and the trumpets of heaven were about to sound. Amanda's recovery at Mount Sinai Hospital surprised all the specialists. In just 3 days, her exams showed an improvement that would normally take months to happen. Dr. Mendez spent hours poring over her medical records, seeking a scientific explanation for the phenomenon. "There are no precedents in medical literature," he commented to his team during an evaluation meeting. "It's as if every cell in her body had been reprogrammed." Amanda, in turn, struggled with an even greater challenge: how to share what she had experienced. The visions remained crystal clear in her mind, but words seemed inadequate to describe them. Every time she closed her eyes, she would see the scenes with frightening clarity. On her first truly conscious night in the hospital, after the children were convinced to go home and rest, Amanda took her cell phone and began frantically writing in her notes. She needed to record everything while it was fresh in her memory. "January 20th, 2024, she typed with trembling fingers. "The day I died and was reborn." The nurses making their night rounds found her crying silently as she wrote. One of them, Nurse Betty, a grey-haired lady with a gentle smile, sat down beside her. "You need to rest," she said softly, trying to take the phone. "I can't," Amanda replied, her eyes red but determined. "There's so much to tell, so much to warn about." Nurse Betty, who had decades of experience with patients, recognized something different in Amanda's gaze. It wasn't the post-trauma delirium she had witnessed so many times. There was a deep lucidity, an authentic urgency. "Then tell me," she said, sitting more comfortably in the chair beside the bed. Over the next 2 hours, Amanda shared fragments of her experience. She talked about the light, about Jesus' presence, about the visions. Nurse Betty listened without interrupting, her own religious convictions being challenged and expanded with each word. "The first event," Amanda explained, her voice trembling, "will happen this year. A leader will emerge, someone who will promise to unite the world, but it will all be an illusion." The next morning, Michael arrived early to visit his mother. At 17, he already showed the maturity of someone much older, especially after his parents' difficult divorce 3 years earlier. He found Amanda sitting in bed, looking out the window of the 15th floor at the New York City skyline. "Mom," he called softly, "I brought those bagels you love, from Russ and Daughters." Amanda turned to her son, her eyes watery. "Michael, my son, I need to tell you something important." He sat down, preparing himself for what he imagined would be a conversation about her health. But what he heard in the next 2 hours completely changed his worldview. Amanda told him about the 7 trumpets, about each vision in detail. She talked about the changes that would come, about the persecution of Christians, about the spiritual awakening among the young. Michael, who had always considered himself more scientific than spiritual, felt something stirring deeply within him. "Mom," he interrupted at one point, "you know this is going to sound impossible to most people, right? I know, son, she replied, holding his hand. That's why I need your help. You've always been my reality check, my questioner. I need you to help me find a way to share this without people thinking I'm crazy. Chal was silent for a few moments, processing everything. His rational side wanted to find medical explanations for his mother's experience, but something in his heart recognized a deeper truth. Are you planning to tell everyone? He finally asked. I have no choice, Michael. It was a mission I received. But I need to do it the right way at the right time. At that moment, Sarah and Luke arrived at the room, bringing more energy and life to the environment. Sarah, with her heightened spiritual sensitivity, immediately sensed that something had changed. Mom, she said, approaching the bed, your eyes are different. Amanda smiled, pulling her daughter into a hug. Yes, my love. Mom has seen things that changed everything. Luke, at 8 years old, climbed onto the bed and snuggled up next to his mother. Tell us, Mom, did you see angels? Amanda looked at her 3 children, her heart overflowing with love and concern. How could she prepare these 3 precious lives for what was to come? How could she protect them without hiding the truth? I saw much more than angels, my little one, she began, carefully choosing her words. I saw the future that God is preparing for all of us, and I need you to be very strong for what's ahead. As Amanda began to share her experience with her children, outside the room, Dr. Mendez was talking with his team about the latest tests. The results were inexplicable by modern medicine standards. Perhaps, he muttered to himself, there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in our philosophy. What no one knew at that moment was that this hospital room in the heart of New York City had become the epicenter of a spiritual revolution that was about to begin. The clock was running, and the trumpets of heaven were about to sound. The return home a week later marked the beginning of a new phase in Amanda's life and that of her family. Their apartment in Brooklyn, New York, had always been a haven of peace and comfort, but now it seemed too small to contain the magnitude of what she carried in her heart. On that first night at home, after the children had gone to bed, Amanda sat at her desk, where she used to prepare her history lessons. She opened her laptop and began to methodically organize everything she had seen. Each trumpet, each vision, each detail needed to be documented with precision. As she typed, a notification popped up on her cell phone. It was a message from Mark, her ex-husband. We need to talk about what happened. The doctors told me, worrying. Things about your mental state. Amanda sighed deeply. Mark had always been extremely rational, a successful executive who lived in the world of numbers and statistics. How could she explain something so transcendental to someone who only believed in what could be proven? We can talk tomorrow, she simply replied, knowing it would be a difficult discussion. The next morning, while preparing breakfast for the children, Amanda noticed Sarah staring fixedly at the TV in the living room. The morning news showed images of an international conference in Geneva. A new leader emerges on the global stage, announced the reporter. Alexander Theron, the Greek philanthropist billionaire, presented today his revolutionary digital monetary unification project. Amanda dropped the cup she was holding, the sound of porcelain shattering on the floor, echoing through the kitchen. On the screen, a man of about 45, with graying hair and penetrating eyes, was speaking with hypnotic eloquence. It was him, exactly as she had seen in her first vision. "Mom," Sarah called, concerned. "Are you okay?" "It's him," Amanda whispered, her hands trembling. "The first trumpet." Michael, who was coming down the stairs at that moment, stopped when he saw his mother's state. "Who is he, Mom?" "The deceiver," she replied, her eyes fixed on the television. "The one who will promise peace but bring division." That afternoon, Mark arrived for the promised conversation. He found Amanda in her study, surrounded by notes and drawings. "What is all this, Amanda?" he asked, picking up one of the papers where she had drawn symbols and numerical sequences. "They're the visions, Mark, what Jesus showed me when I was on the other side." "Amanda," he began, his tone condescending, "the doctors explained to me that near-death experiences can cause hallucinations. It's a well-documented phenomenon." They weren't hallucinations, she replied firmly. And I have proof. Did you see the news today? About that Greek billionaire, what about him? He's exactly as I saw in my vision, Mark. Every detail, every gesture. And this is just the beginning. Mark sat heavily in the chair in front of her desk. I'm worried about the kids, Amanda. This whole story, it's not healthy for them. Is it not healthy to prepare them for what's coming? She questioned, her voice rising slightly. God gave me this mission for a reason. Mission? Amanda, you're a history teacher. You've always been rational, balanced. What happened to you? I died, Mark, she answered simply. I died and came back because I needed to warn people, and I'm going to do it, with or without your support. The silence that followed was heavy, laden with tension. Finally, Mark stood up. I'm going to file for custody of the children, he announced, until you seek professional help. Amanda's world seemed to freeze at that moment. The threat of losing her children was like a dagger in her heart, but the certainty of what she had experienced was even stronger. Do what you think you must, she replied, maintaining her composure, but I won't deny the truth. After Mark left, Amanda fell to her knees in her room, tears streaming down her face. Lord, she prayed in whispers, you showed me all this. Now show me how to protect my children without abandoning the mission. That night, unable to sleep, Amanda began writing a blog. If she needed to reach people, she would start in the digital world. Her first words flowed naturally. My name is Amanda Anderson, and on January 20th, 2024, I had an experience that changed not just my life, but will change the fate of humanity. What I'm going to share here are not theories or speculations, but truths that were revealed to me from the other side of the veil. What Amanda didn't know was that her words would soon reach far more people than she could imagine, and that among her first readers would be someone very close to Alexander Theron himself. Amanda's blog, initially created as a diary of her revelations, began to gain unexpected attention. In just 2 weeks, her detailed posts about the visions had been shared thousands of times, mainly in Christian groups concerned with the signs of the times. It was a February morning when Sarah came running into her mother's room, her tablet in hand. "Mom, you need to see this," she exclaimed, showing the screen. "Your last post has gone viral. People from all over the world are commenting." Amanda took the tablet with trembling hands. The comments ranged from deep interest to aggressive skepticism. But what caught her attention most was a private message she had just received. "Dear Mrs. Anderson, I am Isabella Montenegro, assistant to Mr. Alexander Theron. Your blog has caught our attention, especially your predictions about the monetary unification project. Mr. Theron would like to meet you personally. Please contact us to schedule a meeting." Amanda felt a shiver run down her spine. It was the confirmation she hadn't expected to receive so soon. "Sarah," she called her daughter, who was still by her side, "do you remember what I told you about the first trumpet? About the leader who would deceive many people?" Sarah replied, her eyes widening in understanding. "Mom, you're not going to meet him, are you?" Before Amanda could answer, the doorbell rang. It was Rachel, her best friend and colleague from Liberty High School, where Amanda was still on medical leave. "Mandy," Rachel hugged her friend as soon as she entered. "I came as soon as I could. Did you see that the school board wants to talk to you? Your blog, it's causing a lot of discussion among the students." Amanda invited her friend to sit in the living room while Sarah went to prepare coffee. "Rach," Amanda began, showing Isabella Montenegro's message, "things are happening exactly as I was shown, and now he wants to meet me." Rachel, who had known Amanda for over 15 years, had always admired her balance and sensibility. Seeing her now so convinced of these visions was disconcerting. "Amanda, you need to be careful," she warned. "This Alexander Theron, there's something between the lines of what he proposes that I don't like." "That's exactly why I need to meet him," Amanda replied. "I need to understand more, to see up close. In my vision, I saw that many would be deceived by his apparent goodness." At that moment, Michael entered the living room, returning from school. His face was tense. "Mom, he said, sitting down next to her. "Everyone at school is talking about your blog. Some older students are saying bad things about you." Amanda pulled her son close, kissing his forehead. "I know it's not easy for you, my love. But remember what we talked about, truth and courage. That sometimes the truth has a price," Michael replied, "but that lying has an even higher price." Rachel observed the interaction between mother and son, beginning to perceive that there was something different about Amanda. It wasn't just conviction. It was a kind of inner light, a certainty that transcended reason. "What are you going to do about the school?" Rachel asked. "And about this invitation from Theron?" "As for the school," Amanda replied, "I'll face whatever I need to. I can't stop being who I am, teaching what I know is true. And as for Theron..." She paused, looking out the window at the San Francisco sky, where dark clouds were approaching, announcing a storm. "I'm going to meet him, but not alone. I need witnesses, people who can see and hear everything." "I'll go with you," Rachel offered immediately. "No, Mom," Michael protested. "What if it's dangerous?" Amanda smiled, a sad but determined smile. "Sometimes, son, the greatest danger is doing nothing when God calls us to act." That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Amanda sat down to write her response to Theron's assistant. As she typed, a heavy storm broke over the city. The lightning illuminated her concentrated face as she carefully chose each word. What Amanda didn't know was that at that exact moment, in a luxurious penthouse in downtown San Francisco, Alexander Theron was observing the same storm, an enigmatic smile on his lips as he read the latest post on her blog. "Interesting," he murmured to himself. "Very interesting." The office of Alexander Theron occupied the top 3 floors of one of the most imposing buildings on Market Street. Amanda observed her own image reflected in the mirrored glass of the elevator as she ascended to the 40th floor. She had chosen a simple but elegant navy blue dress, her brown hair pulled back in a discreet bun. Rachel was by her side, as promised, along with a young lawyer named Daniel Santos, who was a member of her church and had offered to accompany them after reading the blog. "Remember," Daniel whispered as the elevator approached the desired floor, "don't sign anything, don't make promises. We're here just to listen." The doors opened to an environment that seemed straight out of a futuristic movie. Smart glass walls subtly changed color, creating an ethereal atmosphere. A receptionist with an impeccable appearance greeted them with a studied smile. "Mrs. Anderson," a melodious voice called, and Isabella Montenegro emerged from a side corridor. She was a tall, elegant woman with piercing green eyes. "Mr. Theron is eager to meet you." Amanda felt a tightness in her chest as she was led down a long corridor. On the walls, screens displayed real-time graphs and numbers showing market quotes from around the world. The meeting room was circular, with a panoramic view of San Francisco. Alexander Theron was standing by the window, observing the city. When he turned, Amanda felt her heart skip a beat. It was exactly as in her vision, every detail. "Amanda Anderson," he smiled, extending his hand. "Or should I say, our modern prophetess." His Greek accent was soft, almost musical, but there was something in his voice that caused subtle discomfort in those who heard it. "Mr. Theron," Amanda replied, maintaining her composure. "Thank you for receiving us. Please sit down." He gestured to the crescent-shaped meeting table. "I must confess that your blog intrigued me deeply, especially your predictions about my project." Isabella Montenegro sat down next to Theron, a tablet in her hands, ready to take notes. "They're not predictions, Mr. Theron," Amanda replied calmly. "They're warnings." "Warnings?" He arched an eyebrow, his smile never wavering. "About my project bringing division instead of unity? About me being a... How did you write it?" "Ah, yes. Deceiver?" Rachel tensed beside Amanda, but Daniel remained, serene, observing every detail of the interaction. "You propose a single digital currency," Amanda continued, "promising to end poverty and unify the world economy. But what you don't say is that this will give a small group total control over every transaction, every purchase, every sale. And wouldn't that be better than the current chaos? Theron interrupted, leaning forward. A unified, transparent system without corruption? Transparent to whom? Amanda retorted. In my vision, I saw people being excluded from this system for not accepting certain conditions. Theron's smile faltered for an almost imperceptible moment. Mrs. Anderson, he leaned back in his chair, I come from a long line of Greek philosophers and mystics. I deeply respect spiritual experiences, but I'm also a practical man. What exactly do you hope to achieve with these accusations? They're not accusations, Amanda replied, her voice firm. They're warnings. You may have the best intentions, but you're being used by forces you don't understand. Isabella Montenegro let out a sound of disdain, but Theron silenced her with her gesture. And if I offered you a position in my organization, he suddenly proposed, someone with your unique perspective could be very valuable. We could work together, shape the future. To silence me, Amanda completed. To give purpose to your message, he gently corrected. Imagine the reach you could have with our resources. Amanda felt a chill. It was exactly as in her vision. The subtle temptation, the seemingly generous offer. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Theron, she replied, standing up, but my mission is not to shape the future, but to warn about it. Theron also stood up, his smile now having a touch of coldness. Think carefully, Mrs. Anderson. Your life could become very difficult if you continue with these conspiracy theories. Your children deserve a stable mother, don't you think? The mention of the children made Amanda's blood run cold. Rachel stepped forward, protective. Was that a threat, Mr. Theron? Daniel, the lawyer, calmly questioned. Just a friendly observation, Theron replied, his smile returning to normal. Isabella, please escort our guest to the exit. In the elevator, going down, the silence was heavy. As soon as they reached the street, Rachel exploded. Amanda, that was scary. He practically threatened you and the children. We need to document all of this, Daniel added, already making notes on his cell phone. Every word, every insinuation. But Amanda was strangely calm. Don't you see? This confirms everything. Every detail of my vision is being fulfilled. That night, at home, Amanda found her children anxiously awaiting her return. Michael was the first to hug her. How was it, Mum? He asked, concern evident in his eyes. It was enlightening, she replied, hugging Sophie and Luke as well. But now we need to be stronger and more united than ever. After the children went to sleep, Amanda sat down to write a new post on her blog. Her hands trembled slightly over the keyboard, but her determination was unshakable. Today I faced the first sign in person. What I saw confirmed every detail of the visions I received. Time is being fulfilled faster than we imagined. The meeting with Alexander Theron had repercussions far beyond what Amanda could have imagined. Her blog, which was already gaining considerable attention, exploded in views after she shared the details of the encounter. In a few days, her story ended up on television programs and major news portals. Teacher claims to have received apocalyptic visions during near-death experience, announced one of the country's main newspapers. Opinions were drastically divided. While some considered her a modern prophetess, others labeled her as an opportunist or unbalanced. One morning, while preparing coffee, Amanda was surprised by a call from Mary, her coordinator at Lincoln High School. Amanda, Mary's voice, sounded tense. We need to talk. The parents are concerned. Your blog is affecting the school. I understand, Amanda replied, her heart tight. What time do you want me to come? This afternoon, if possible. The school board will be present. Amanda hung up the phone and looked out the kitchen window. The San Francisco sky was peculiarly clear that morning, with an intense blue that seemed almost supernatural. Mom? Sophie appeared at the kitchen door, still in her pajamas. Are you okay? Amanda smiled at her daughter. Sophie, with her sharp sensitivity, always noticed when something was wrong. I am, my love. Just preparing my heart for another battle. In Nye. The afternoon at the school, Amanda found the meeting room packed. Besides the administration and coordination, there were parent representatives and some teachers. The looks ranged from sympathy to concern to clear hostility. "Amanda," Principal Paul Barnes began, "you've always been one of our best teachers. Your dedication to the students is unquestionable. But this situation, what situation exactly?" Amanda asked calmly. "Your students are researching your blog," one of the mothers present intervened. "My daughter is having nightmares about your prophecies." "And how do we explain to the children," another father completed, "that their history teacher now claims to be a prophetess?" Amanda took a deep breath before responding. "I've always taught my students to question, to think critically. Why should it be any different now? I'm not asking them to believe me, I'm just asking them to observe the signs around them." "But what signs?" questioned the coordinator, Mary. "Amanda, you're talking about global conspiracies, about a deceptive world leader." "And don't you see what's happening?" Amanda retorted, her voice gaining strength. "The financial system being revolutionized, control technologies expanding, growing persecution against people of faith." A heavy silence fell over the room. Some of those present shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. "Amanda," the principal finally spoke, "we need to think about the well-being of the students. Maybe it's better for you to take a longer leave." "You want to push me away for telling the truth?" she asked, a tone of sadness in her voice. "We want to protect our children," one of the mothers replied. At that moment, screams from the schoolyard caught everyone's attention. Running to the window, they saw something extraordinary. The sky, previously blue, had turned a strange purplish hue. An inexplicable atmospheric phenomenon was happening. Students and teachers came out of the classrooms, marveling and frightened by the spectacle. Amanda immediately recognized it. Timis was exactly as in her second vision. "It's the beginning," she murmured, tears streaming down her face. "The awakening is starting." Her cell phone vibrated. It was a message from an unknown number. "You are not alone. There are many of us who have had similar visions. We need to meet." The message was signed by Sister Cecilia, Light Monastery. The phenomenon in the sky lasted only 15 minutes, but its repercussions would be eternal. On social media, thousands of people shared photos and videos. Scientists rushed to try to explain the inexplicable, and Amanda's blog now received millions of hits. That night at home, Amanda found Michael in his room, frantically researching on his computer. "Mom," he called as soon as he saw her, "it's happening everywhere. People are having dreams, vision, and they're all saying the same thing." Amanda sat down next to her son, observing the dozens of reports he had collected. They were people from different countries, cultures and religions, all describing experiences similar to hers. "And there's more," Michael continued, his eyes shining with a new understanding. "Remember what you said about a spiritual awakening among young people. Look at this." He showed several groups on social networks, all created in the last 24 hours, where young people shared mystical experiences and questioned the direction the world was taking. "It's happening, isn't it?" he asked, his voice mixing fear and admiration. "Yes, son," Amanda replied, hugging him. "And now more than ever, we need to be prepared." Her cell phone vibrated again. It was another message from the same unknown number. "The meeting will be tomorrow. Come to the monastery at sunset. Bring your children. They need to be protected." "For what's coming?" Amanda looked out Michael's bedroom window. The sky had returned to normal, but nothing would ever be the same again. The second trumpet had sounded, and the collective awakening was just beginning. The Light Monastery, one of the oldest buildings in San Francisco, emanated an atmosphere of mystery on that cloudy afternoon. Amanda arrived with her 3 children shortly before sunset, as agreed. The place, normally closed at that hour, had its ancient doors slightly ajar. An elderly nun, whom Amanda immediately recognized as Sister Cecilia from the photos she had seen on the internet, awaited them in the inner courtyard. Her eyes of a deep blue seemed to carry centuries of wisdom. "Welcome, Amanda," the nun smiled, extending her hands, "and welcome, little warriors." Sophie immediately approached the nun, as if recognizing in her a familiar soul. Luke, partially, hid behind his mother, while Michael observed everything with his usual analytical gaze. "This way," Sister Cecilia guided them through secular corridors to a circular room in the monastery's basement. "The others are already waiting." The room was lit by candles, and around a large round table sat about 12 people. Amanda recognized some of them from news reports and social media. They were other people who had also had visions in recent months. "Please sit down." A deep and gentle voice sounded from one of the corners. It was Father Gabriel, a man of about 70 years old, known for his studies on prophecies and mystical experiences. As everyone settled in, Amanda observed those present. There was a rabbi, an evangelical pastor, a Native American shaman, a Buddhist, monk, and several seemingly ordinary people of different ages and backgrounds. Each of us, Father Gabriel began, received a piece of the puzzle. But Amanda, you received the complete vision of the 7 trumpets. How do you know that? Michael asked, surprising everyone with his intervention. The shaman, who introduced herself as Jane, smiled at the teenager. Because each of us saw a piece of what your mother described in her blog, and now with the sign in the sky, the times are being fulfilled faster than we imagined, completed Rabbi David. What we saw yesterday was just the beginning. Amanda felt a chill. You also saw him? Everyone in the room knew who she was referring to. Some nodded positively. Alexander Theron, said Pastor John Paul, is just the visible face of something much bigger. But what concerns us most now is your safety, especially the children's. Sophie, who had been silent until then, suddenly spoke. I have dreams too. I see things, but they're different from Mom's visions. Sister Cecilia approached, the girl gently touching her forehead. You have a special gift, little one, just like your younger brother. Luke, hearing this, finally came out from behind his mother. Do you see the angels too? A murmur of surprise went through the room. Amanda looked at her youngest son with new eyes. She had never mentioned angels in her visions. We need to protect them, said Jane. The children's gifts will be fundamental in the days to come. But how? Amanda asked, concern evident in her voice. Mark, my ex-husband, is trying to take custody of them from me. The school pushed me away. Theron himself made veiled threats. That's why we're here. Father Gabriel stood up, walking to the center of the room. Each of us has resources, connections, ways to help. But more important than that, he paused, pulling an ancient scroll from inside his cassock. This document, he continued, has been preserved for centuries in our monastery. It speaks of a circle of light, 12 guardians who would gather in the last days to protect those who carry visions of the future. Like the 12 apostles? Michael asked, his skepticism giving way to curiosity. Like the 12 apostles, the 12 tribes, the 12 months of the year, the rabbi replied, the number of fullness, of divine protection. Sister Cecilia began to light more candles, positioning them at specific points in the room. Each of us represents a door, a path of protection and preparation. And us? Sophie asked, her voice trembling slightly. You, dear, Jane replied, are the future we fight for. The seeds we need to protect. Amanda watched the shadows of the candles dancing on the ancient walls. It was as if time itself breathed in that room, loaded with mystery and purpose. What do we need to do? She finally asked. Father Gabriel unrolled the scroll on the table. First, we need to fully understand your visions, Amanda. Every detail is important. Then, we'll prepare safe places, both physical and spiritual. And then, a sudden thunder shook the monastery, making the candles flicker. Luke ran to his mother's lap. And then, the priest continued, we need to prepare for the third sign, because after it, there will be no turning back. As the storm formed outside, 12 people of different beliefs and histories united in a common purpose. At the center of this circle, Amanda and her children finally found a safe harbor. What none of them knew was that, at that exact moment in the luxurious offices on Market Street, Alexander Theron was also holding his own secret meeting. In a room protected against any type of electronic surveillance, he met with 12 of the most powerful people in the world, virtually connected through technology still unknown to the public. Amanda's life changed drastically in the weeks following the meeting at the Light Monastery. Following the guidance of the Circle of Guardians, she and her children moved to an old house in the Pacific Heights neighborhood, close to the monastery. The property, which had belonged to the religious order for centuries, had been specially prepared to protect them. Michael, initially resistant to the change, began to take an interest in the impressive library that occupied an entire floor of the house. Ancient books on prophecies, manuscripts in ancestral languages, and fascinating historical documents filled the mahogany shelves. "Mom," he called one afternoon, while studying a particularly intriguing text. "Look what I found about the trumpets of the apocalypse." Before he could continue, Sophie burst into the room, her face pale with concern. "You need to see this," she exclaimed, turning on the old television that occupied a corner of the library. The news showed live images of an inexplicable phenomenon. In various parts of the planet, luminous portals were appearing in the sky. Scientists from all over the world were perplexed, unable to explain the anomalies that defied the laws of physics. "The third trumpet," Amanda whispered, immediately recognizing the signs from her vision. Her cell phone rang. It was Sister Cecilia. "Gather the children and come to the monastery immediately. It's beginning." On the way to the monastery, the streets of San Francisco were in an uproar. People stopped to photograph the strange luminous phenomena in the sky, while others ran in panic, fearing the end of the world. When they arrived at the monastery, they found the circle of guardians already gathered in the underground room. Father Gabriel was pale, holding an ancient manuscript with trembling hands. "The portals," he said as soon as he saw them, "are exactly as described in this 12th century text. They are windows." "Windows between dimensions," Luke completed, surprising everyone. The 8-year-old boy had his eyes fixed on an apparently empty point in the room. "The angels are passing through them." Jane, the shaman, approached Luke. "What else do you see, little one?" "I see warriors of light," he replied with childlike simplicity. "They are positioning themselves, preparing." Sophie, who was next to her brother, began to tremble. "I can see too, but there's something else, something dark trying to pass through the portals as well." Rabbi David quickly consulted some papers on his tablet. "Similar reports are emerging all over the world. Children and sensitive people describing exactly the same thing." At that moment, the monastery's electrical energy fluctuated, and the candles illuminating the underground room flickered intensely. "The veil between worlds is thinner," explained Sister Cecilia. "What was once invisible to common eyes will now begin to manifest." "But why?" Michael asked, his rational side still struggling to understand. "What's the purpose of all this?" "It's an awakening," replied the Buddhist monk, who had remained silent until then. "Humanity needs to see beyond the material illusion before it's too late." Amanda sat down, feeling the weight of understanding. "In my vision, I saw that these portals would be just the beginning. After them—" Her voice was interrupted by an emergency broadcast on all the cell phones present. It was a pronouncement from Alexander Theron. "Citizens of the world, in light of the extraordinary events we are witnessing, I come to announce that our organization has developed technology capable of studying and potentially controlling these phenomena. I ask that you remain calm and trust in our institutions." "He's lying," Luke declared with surprising certainty. "The portals cannot be controlled by machines," Father Gabriel agreed. "He's trying to use this moment to consolidate his power, but this too was foreseen." "What do we do now?" Amanda asked, pulling her children close. "Now," Sister Cecilia replied, "we begin the second phase. Each of the guardians will activate their own circles of protection, chosen people around the world who will help prepare humanity for what is to come." "And us?" Sophie asked, her voice trembling slightly. "You," Jane replied with a gentle smile, "will be trained. Each of you has a specific gift that will be crucial in the days to come." Rabbi David approached Michael. "Your gift, young man, is analytical. Wisdom. You will help decipher the ancient texts, find the patterns. Sophie," continued Sister Cecilia, "you have the gift of empathic vision. You will be able to help people process what's happening, to not get lost in fear. And Luke," Jane smiled at the boy, "you see beyond the veil with total clarity. You will be one of the most important guides." Amanda observed everything with a mixture of pride and concern. Her children, whom she had tried so hard to protect, were destined for much greater roles than she had ever imagined. A new thunder shook the monastery, and through the ancient windows they could see the luminous portals intensifying in the San Francisco sky. "It has begun," said Luke, his eyes shining with a supernatural light. "The armies are moving." The circle of guardians gathered around the Anderson family, initiating an ancient prayer in various languages. As the voices rose in the underground room, Amanda was certain that nothing would ever be the same again. The third trumpet had sounded, and the veil between worlds was tearing. The world changed rapidly after the appearance of the portals. In just 1 week, society, as everyone knew it, was transformed. Governments around the world declared a state of emergency, while scientists and religious leaders furiously debated the meaning of the phenomena. In the old house in Pacific Heights, Amanda and her children watched everything with a deeper understanding. The library had become their headquarters, where Michael spent hours translating ancient texts with an ease that surprised everyone. "Mom," he called on a Sunday morning, "I found something incredible. This text in Aramaic, it talks about those who will see beyond the veil, and specifically mentions 3 siblings. Sophie, who was practicing her empathic abilities with Sister Cecilia, approached with interest. Does it talk about us? Not explicitly, Michael replied, adjusting his glasses, but the descriptions are too specific to be coincidence. Luke, who was playing quietly in a corner of the library, suddenly stopped. His eyes gained that special glow that everyone had. "Already learned to recognize they're coming," he said simply. "Who, my love?" Amanda asked, approaching her youngest son. "The others like us, children who can see they're being brought here." As if confirming his words, Amanda's phone rang. It was Jane. "Amanda, prepare the house. We're bringing 5 families, children, with special gifts. They're not safe where they are." In the following hours, the old house gained new life. Scared but relieved families arrived, bringing children with looks that Amanda recognized, the same look she saw in her own children. Sarah, a 6-year-old girl from Portland, could see the portals even when they were closed. John, a teenager, from Chicago, could hear conversations across dimensions. Marina, 10 years old, from Miami, drew with precision events that had not yet happened. As the families settled in, Amanda received another call, this time from a blocked number. "Amanda Anderson?" The voice was Isabella Montenegro's, Theron's assistant. "We need to talk, not about what you think, but about my daughter. She's seeing things." Amanda felt her heart tighten. "Where are you?" "In a hotel, hiding. Alexander, as he's collecting these special children, saying he needs to study them, please." Isabella's voice broke, revealing genuine fear. "Come here," Amanda replied without hesitation. "I'll send someone to get you." When she hung up, she found Sophie looking at her with understanding. "Her daughter is like us, isn't she?" the girl asked. "Yes, and they need help." "But Mom," Michael intervened, "what if it's a trap?" "It's not," Luke spoke with his characteristic certainty. "The angel beside her is crying." That night, the old house sheltered almost 20 special children and their families. Isabella and her 7-year-old daughter Clara were the last to arrive, brought by Father Gabriel personally. "He's using technology to try to map the portals," Isabella revealed during an emergency meeting. "But that's not all. He believes these children are the key to something bigger." "And they are," confirmed Sister Cecilia, "but not in the way he thinks." Amanda watched the children playing in the house's inner garden. Despite all the chaos in the world, here they seemed to find peace. Sophie had naturally become a leader among them, helping each one understand and accept their gifts. Michael continued his translations, now helped by other teenagers who discovered similar talents. The library had transformed into a center for prophetic studies, where ancient texts revealed their secrets to young, receptive minds. Luke and Clara became inseparable, often sitting in silence, apparently conversing with beings no one else could see. "Time is accelerating," Luke announced during dinner. "The next trumpet will be the most difficult." Amanda felt a shiver. In her vision, the fourth trumpet brought a darkness different from anything they had ever faced. "We need to prepare the children," said Isabella, who in a few days had become a valuable ally, "and we need to warn more people." "But how?" asked one of the mothers present. "The media is controlled, social networks are censored." "Through dreams," Sophie suddenly replied. "That's how we'll reach people. While they sleep, they can see the truth." Everyone looked at the 14-year-old girl with surprise and admiration. Her spiritual maturity was growing every day. "Sophie is right," Jane confirmed. "The portals don't just affect the physical world. The veil is thin in all dimensions, including the dream world." That night, as the families retired, Amanda climbed to the tower of the old house. From there, she could see the luminous portals that still shone in the San Francisco sky, now monitored by drones and military equipment. Her cell phone vibrated with a notification. It was her blog, which remained active despite censorship attempts. Thousands of people shared their own experiences, their visions, their dreams. The awakening was happening, not in the way the powerful expected to control, but through the pure souls of children, through the dreams of those seeking truth, through love that transcended dimensions. The fourth trumpet was approaching, and with it would come darkness. But now Amanda knew she was not alone. The light shone brighter through the special children, the united guardians, the families who chose to believe. In his room, Luke observed the night sky. "The angels are smiling, Mommy," he said when Amanda came in to say goodnight. "They say love is stronger than fear." Amanda hugged her son, silent tears streaming down her face. The world outside might be on the brink of chaos, but here in this old house full of special children, hope blossomed like a flower in the desert. The real battle was just beginning, but the army of light was already formed. And its most powerful weapons were the innocence of children and the strength of unconditional love. The dawn brought with it a different silence. The portals in the sky, which had been shining incessantly for weeks, began to pulse in a synchronized rhythm. Luke was the first to notice the change. "It's time," he announced during breakfast, his small voice carrying an immense weight. "The fourth trumpet will sound today." The 20 special children who now inhabited the old house stopped their activities simultaneously, all feeling the same truth that Luke had proclaimed. Sophie, who had become a sort of older sister to all of them, began to organize them in a circle in the inner garden. "We need to prepare," she said, with a wisdom beyond her years. "The darkness will try to separate us, but together we are stronger." Michael came down from the library carrying an ancient manuscript. "I found it," he exclaimed. "The text speaks of the moment when the stars will go out and the veil of darkness will cover the earth. But it also mentions that the children of light will be like beacons in the storm." Amanda observed everything with a mixture of pride and apprehension. Her 3 children had transformed into natural leaders, Michael with his analytical wisdom, Sophie with her ability to unite and guide, and Luke with his pure vision of the spiritual world. Sister Cecilia arrived hurriedly, accompanied by the other guardians. "The observatory instruments are recording unprecedented anomalies," she informed. "It's as if the very fabric of space-time is bending." At that moment, all the children looked simultaneously at the sky. The portals began to pulse more intensely, and then darkness. Not a normal darkness, but an absence of light that seemed to swallow hope itself. In a matter of minutes, the entire world was plunged into supernatural darkness. "Don't be afraid." Luke's voice sounded clear in the darkness. "It's just a veil. The light continues to exist on the other side." The 20 special children, still in a circle in the garden, began to emit a soft light, as if their souls were shining through their bodies. Sophie began to sing a melody that no one had taught, but that all the children seemed to know. In the streets, chaos was setting in. People ran in panic, systems failed, fear spread like an epidemic. But in the old house, the children kept their light burning. Alexander Theron's voice sounded on all still-functioning radio frequencies. Citizens of the world, stay calm. Our quantum energy systems can restore light. Trust our technology, trust our leadership. He's lying again, said Clara, Isabella's daughter. True light doesn't come from machines. Amanda felt her heart expand with a deep understanding. Her near-death experience, the visions, the warnings, everything had been a preparation for this moment. The children are the key, she said, tears of joy streaming down her face in the darkness, not to control the portals or manipulate dimensions, but to show the way back to light through pure love. As if responding to her words, the light emanating from the children began to spread, touching first the guardians, then the parents, and gradually expanding beyond the walls of the old house. This is how we overcome darkness, Sophie explained, her voice blending with the celestial music the children were singing, not by fighting against it, but by lighting our own light. Luke, the smallest of them all, now shone more intensely. The angels are singing with us, he smiled, and it's not just them. All the people who have chosen to love are joining the song. It was true. Throughout the city, throughout the country, throughout the world, people began to feel a melody in their hearts. Those who chose love over fear began to shine, forming a network of light that no darkness could extinguish. The fourth trumpet had sounded, bringing the prophesied darkness. But it also revealed an even deeper truth. The strongest light doesn't come from outside, but from within. And when that light is shared through pure love, no darkness can prevail. In the offices on Market Street, Alexander Theron observed his now useless screens, realizing that all his technological power was insignificant in the face of the force of love manifested through the innocence of children. In the old house in Pacific Heights, Amanda hugged her 3 children, now radiant with divine light. The other children and their families joined the embrace, forming a nucleus of love so powerful that it began to repel the darkness. And now? Michael asked, for the first time not needing ancient texts to understand what was happening. Now, Amanda replied, we continue loving. Because love is the only force that transcends all veils, all dimensions, all darkness. And the other trumpets? Sophie questioned softly. They will come in due time, Luke replied with his innocent wisdom, but now we know the secret. The darker the night, the brighter we need to be. The circle of light continued to expand, touching more and more hearts, awakening more and more souls. Darkness still covered the world, but now it was dotted with millions of points of light, people who chose to love despite fear. The battle was not over. The other trumpets would still sound, bringing their own challenges. But a fundamental truth had been revealed. Love, especially the pure love of children, was the most powerful force in the universe. And so, in the deepest darkness, humanity began to rediscover its own light, a light that no earthly power could control or extinguish, a light that came from love beyond the veil.